So you are thinking about moving to Fort Worth, Texas, and you want to know exactly what it's going to be like living in Fort Worth, Texas. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you the pros and the cons, most importantly, the cons of what it's like living in Fort Worth, Texas. So that way it can help you decide whether or not Fort Worth is actually going to be a good fit for you. And take it from me, I literally just moved here a little over a year ago, and there's so many pros and cons that I experienced here. And that's what I want to do. I want to spread the word and help you make that decision of whether or not Fort Worth is the right place for you. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. You don't want to miss it. And I'm going to get to it right now. What's going on, everyone? This is your boy Dre the Realtor with Sukaza Realty in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. And if this is your first time to my channel, you want to know everything there is to know about living, working, playing, eating, and chilling in Fort Worth, Texas and the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, then make sure you hit that red subscribe button and the bell icon next to it to be the first to know when I upload a new video. And honestly, people contact me each and every day wanting to get more information about moving to the DFW, and I absolutely love it. So if you're looking to move or relocate to the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, give me a call, shoot me a text, or simply send me an email. Whatever you have to do to get in contact with me, I got your back when moving to the DFW. So let's get straight to it. Like I said earlier, there are so many pros and cons of living in Fort Worth, Texas. I just want to give you guys a brief overview of those pros and cons. First I'm going to talk about the pros, and then I'm going to talk about the cons. But make sure you stick around to the very end, because the last con is going to be the most important one, and that may make or break your decision of moving to the DFW. So let's get straight to it. The first pro of living in Fort Worth, Texas is that Fort Worth, Texas is a lot more laid back than Dallas, Texas. Fort Worth, Texas is a lot more of a slower paced city. Dallas is more fast paced. And Dallas, you have the glitz and glam, and Fort Worth, you still have that big city feel, but it's just more modern and slower paced. In my opinion, I'm not trying to say this is a great place for families, but in my opinion, if I did have a kid, then Fort Worth would be a suburban area that I would consider actually consider raising a family in. And a lot of people don't know all the great things that Fort Worth has to offer. Fort Worth is about 45 minutes to an hour to Dallas, but it literally has all these same amenities that Dallas has, besides the glitz and glams and the amenities. Fort Worth has shopping, it has bars, it has entertainment, it has all of that stuff. It actually has quite a few shopping malls. They have the shops at Clear Fork, which is very luxury like. They have Tanger outlets. They also have Hewlin Mall. It's just a bunch of malls that they have. So if you're thinking about moving to Fort Worth, it has everything. If you want a suburban life, then Fort Worth has suburbs. They have a ton of new construction homes, master planned new construction communities that are being built all around Fort Worth, Texas. And in these communities, they literally have everything you need within a 5-minute radius. They have an elementary school in these communities, and they also have shops, your grocery store, anything that you can think of. That's going to be within a 5 to 10 minute radius in Fort Worth, Texas. Another pro that I like about living in Fort Worth, Texas is that although you get that big city feel, it's a lot more affordable than what it is like living in Dallas, Texas. Right now, I currently live in a 2-bed, 2-bath apartment, and I'm only paying $1,100 a month for that apartment. This same apartment in Dallas, Texas will probably cost you anywhere from $1,300, $1,400, or $1,500 a month. So living in Fort Worth, you definitely do get a bargain. Living in Fort Worth, in my opinion, it is definitely more affordable than Dallas, Plano, Frisco. And then I just talked about apartments, but houses are a lot more affordable in Fort Worth, Texas. So let me just put this in perspective for you. The median cost of a house in Dallas, Texas is about $350,000 right now due to the market and COVID-19. All the prices are rising, and the median price of a house in Fort Worth is about $280,000. So you definitely get a little bit more bang for your buck in Fort Worth. And the houses in Fort Worth, I feel you get more square footage for what you pay for. And then, like I said, there's just so many different selections of houses that you can choose to live in the inner city Fort Worth without paying too much for it. And that's just something that you just won't get living inside of Dallas. Everything in Dallas is going to be at a much higher price because Dallas is one of the more sought out cities in the DFW Metroplex. So if you are thinking about moving to Fort Worth, affordability is going to be a huge pro of living in Fort Worth, Texas. So my third pro of living in Fort Worth, Texas is the vibes. Fort Worth just gives off so many different vibes. It has everything that you need. It has the suburban life, it has the club life, it has it has the, I don't know how you say it, but the active life. So they have trails, bike trails, walking trails. They have scenery. They just have a bunch of entertainment. If you are a family guy, I mean, they just have so many places where you can go. They have the Fort Worth Stockyards, which is like one of my favorite attractions. It's a really big tourist attraction, and it basically gives you like a modern westernized feel of Fort Worth, Texas. I mean, they have saloon style restaurants there, and I actually just ate at H3 Ranch today, and their food is bomb. So if you are ever stopping by the Fort Worth Stockyards, and you got to check that place out. And at the Fort Worth Stockyards, you get to see live bulls roam throughout the Stockyards at 11:30 and 4 p.m. each and every day. And on Saturday and Sunday, they have a live rodeo. That's not free, but I think it's only like $20, and it's just a really cool thing to experience. Now, like I said, it just gives off so many vibes. So if you are more so into the club scene, then West 7th Street is where you're going to want to be at. They have clubs, they have restaurants, and just a lot of good eats. Now, if you just like festivals and stuff like that, then if you like festivals and downtown life, then Fort Worth has that as well. They have skyscrapers, they have nice apartment living in downtown Fort Worth. They have Sundance Square where they host a ton of events. COVID-19 kind of made it more relaxed. It's not as popping as it used to be, but it is starting to open up. I remember my first time visiting Fort Worth, Texas. I saw Santa Claus, and I'm like 20 something years old. I saw Santa Claus at Sundance Square in front of this big tree, and it was like the coolest thing that I ever seen. And that was my first time ever being inside of Sundance Square. So there's just so many events and so much things that they celebrate down there at Sundance Square. So like I said, Fort Worth just gives off so many vibes. It literally has something for everyone here in Fort Worth, Texas. So now that we talked about the pros of living in Fort Worth, Texas, let's talk about the cons. My biggest con of living in Fort Worth, Texas is that it's like you're on an island living in Fort Worth, Texas. It's so freaking far from everything. It's about 45 minutes to an hour from Dallas, from Frisco, from Plano, and it's just really annoying, especially me being a realtor, traveling all over the DFW. And it can really take a big toll on your gas tank. And I know what you're probably thinking, well, Dre, why didn't you choose somewhere else? Well, just like you, I was naive and I didn't know what I was doing before I moved to the DFW. So when I picked Fort Worth, I picked it because I thought it was a great fit, but it was far from everything. And I shortly learned that within my first few months of having to drive all around the DFW. And I literally have to fill my gas tank up twice a week. I spend like $30 just to fill my gas tank up. And it just cost me a lot of money in the long run living in Fort Worth, Texas, having to drive so far each and every day. So if you are thinking about moving to Fort Worth, Texas, and you have to travel to Dallas, then you may just want to reconsider that thought, because you are going to be spending a lot of money in gas, and you may spend a lot of money on with toll tags. And don't even get me started on toll tags. But yeah, Fort Worth is far from everything. Another con of living in Fort Worth, Texas is the school districts. Although I don't have any kids right now, I do plan on having kids, and if I do end up living in Fort Worth, Texas, that is a concern for me. And I did my research, and this is public knowledge. You can get it from niche.com. Fort Worth School District is one of the lower ranked school districts in the state of Texas, as well as in the DFW. But Fort Worth also has some really nice suburbs on the outside of Fort Worth, like Keller, North Richland Hills, Crowley, that have some really nice school districts. And just because the school district is bad, just because the overall ranking for the school district is not as good as some of the other cities in the DFW, there are still some pretty good schools in Fort Worth, Texas. But I'm just saying, if you are someone who are looking to move here for family, then if you're someone who's looking here to move to Fort Worth, Texas, to move to the DFW for good school zones, there are some other places that you may want to look for in the DFW, because Fort Worth isn't one of the better school districts in the DFW. Another con of living in Fort Worth is that Fort Worth itself is so spread out, and it literally takes forever to get and it literally takes forever to travel across Fort Worth as well. So if you're looking for a short commute, then Fort Worth may not be the place for you. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes just to get to some major attractions in Fort Worth, Texas. I know I live in Southwest Fort Worth, and it takes me about 20 minutes just to get to the Stockyards, and that's in the heart of Fort Worth. So just imagine how far it takes to get from side to side. So although Fort Worth is not as big as Dallas, and it does take quite some time to travel across Fort Worth, Texas. And I'm from the East Coast. Everything was within a 5 to 10 minute radius for me. So when I moved here, it was such a big adjustment for me, having to travel 15 minutes to get to the local mall, having to travel 5 to 10 minutes to get to the local Walmart. I mean, it is just a mess. And sometimes it can just be a hassle just trying to commute throughout Fort Worth, Texas. And the last con for me of living in Fort Worth is friendly neighbors. People in Fort Worth are so friendly. It is so freaking crazy. Like, I can't even leave my apartment without someone waving at me or saying hi. And I know this is like, something very petty and minute, but like, to me, this kind of grinds my gears, because I'm from the East Coast, and I'm just simply not used to people being this friendly. So if you're someone who are not a big fan, or if you're someone who's from the East Coast, who's just not used to being who is not used to so much friendliness, and who just doesn't find joy in sparking conversations, then Fort Worth may not be for you, because people literally break their neck just to speak to you, and that's what they truly call Southern hospitality. And before I moved here, I thought it was a myth, but it is true. And sometimes it can be cool just to know that that's a vibe, but sometimes it's like, I literally just want to go about my day. Why are you saying hey to me? Why do you want to stop me to have a whole conversation? So that is pretty much the pros and cons of living in Fort Worth in Fort Worth, Texas. So if you are looking to move to Fort Worth, then watch one of these videos to get more information about what it's like living in the DFW. Until next time.